Hey, hey, hey. Happy, oh my God, I almost said Tuesday. Happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today on the Dispatch, I am going to be diving on in and taking a first look at the... God damn, what is wrong with me tonight? I'm like super all over the place. I almost said Tunnels and Trolls. It's like, what the... Tonight, I'll be taking a look at the Castles and Crusades Starter Set from our friends over at Troll Lord Games. Yes, that is right. We're going to be taking a peek at this in just a bit. But welcome aboard, everybody. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Tonight is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. This is live show 1234. That's right. It means it's live stream 1234. Maybe that's why I'm so off tonight. Weird. Just weird. Granted, I did not have a whole lot of time to get ready down here in the Duct Tape Studios before the stream started. Maybe that's it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe this is just going to be a crazy show all night long. I just don't know. I have no idea. Anyway. So welcome, everybody. If you're not overly familiar with the show, as you can tell, it is super, super casual around here. We're certainly not engaged in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. No, we're just hanging out, talking about tabletop gaming, mainly tabletop role-playing games. Thus, the first look at the Castles and Crusades Starter Set tonight. Yes. And of course, I always share the latest in news with you as well. Now, of course, if you are tuning in for that live peek at the starter set, we always tackle the tabletop gaming news first around here. So it's probably going to be about 35, 40 minutes before we get into that first look. So if you're hanging out watching live, put your feet up, kick back, relax. We'll get to it. Don't worry. There's a lot of cool news I'm going to talk about. Now, of course, if you're watching this after the stream has ended, maybe you're catching this on Memorex, there are timestamps in the show notes. So if you want to jump past the TTRPG news, you certainly can. And of course, not only are those timestamps going to be in the show notes, depending on the device you might be watching this on, you might actually find them right there in the timeline of the video as well. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. You must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part. But if you check that box off and have been a subscriber for at least 60 minutes and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Michael Burrell. Michael Berry is with us as well. So we've got back-to-back Michaels. Kathy Evans, Cthulhu, Game Cat, Kevin R. Smith, Runeforged Tabletop Gaming. Mike is also with us, and I will take a wild guess. We might actually have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D also joining us. She is one of our chat moderators who normally lurks in the shadows, keeping everybody in line. Yes. So we got a big show tonight. Let's jump right on into it, because now available in print and PDF from my friends over at Kobold Press is the Monster Vault 2 for Tales of the Valiant. That's right. It is a brand new bestiary for Tales of the Valiant, and that also means it's for Dungeons and Dragons too. And I've got the lowdown. Greater foes, greater glory. The vault opens again. Monster Vault 2 releases over 300 new creatures to populate your next tale of high fantasy adventure. Pit your heroes against an army of strange and never-before-seen enemies, and wield new GM tools to streamline every encounter. Pit your heroes against the inscrutable machinations of Tynan the Twilight Queen. Survive the destructive force of the Void Harbinger. Escape a bar brawl unscathed. Monster templates quickly create themed variants on any monster, including Psychic, Feyblast, Fiendish, and more. There are tips and tables for villainous plots and campaigns which lie within. Deploy new rules for doom points and ramp up the stakes in the face of your players' heroic ambitions. With extensive appendices, simplified stat blocks, and monster bundles to quickly fill your next dungeon or combat encounter, Monster Vault 2 expands your Tales of the Valiant bestiary with unique foes perfect for any fantasy setting. Let your next battle begin. The 355-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $59.99. If you want to just grab the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $39.99. And I must also mention, I myself just received a copy of Monster Vault number 2. I got a bunch of goodies recently. I did not talk about them on last night's show because I figured people were tuning in. They wanted to see the D&D starter set, Heroes of the Borderlands. So I kind of stayed kind of laser focused to get into that as quickly as I could. This is an item which arrived, I want to say day before yesterday. So sweet. I am also going to mention I will have a vote at the end of the show to see which of 3 different role-playing game releases you want me to share with you on tomorrow's live episode of The Dispatch. So stay tuned for that. I will mention what they are when we get to, when we finish up the news, and then I will take a vote at the end of the show. Shazama85 asks, can you start over? I just got here. So welcome to Shazama85. And I'll be very honest, the show started out really shaky. Really, really shaky tonight. So, honestly, I had considered for a minute starting over again. But problem would have been if I do something like that, then it screws up the chat. People don't know where the chat is. It's just a pain in the ass. So I just kind of rolled with it. I brain farted on what we're taking a look at tonight, the Castles and Crusades Starter Set. I started to say Tunnels and Trolls. It's like, what? Rex Young is also with us in chat, says that looks like Krampus on the cover. It does, sort of. All he needs is a bag with little kids in it. On to our next news piece. Deadlands Dark Ages is currently up for crowdfunding. It's far, far past 1,000% funding already for Pinnacle Entertainment Group. And I've got the latest. The year is 877. The place is Britain, not as it was, but as its people thought it was. Danish raiders plunder the land. The last kingdom teeters on the edge of annihilation. It is a land steeped in terror, and that fear stirs the attention and ambition of ancient evils. Morgan Le Fay lives again. Her return, thanks to Mordred in the Wild West of 1884, sets off a shockwave that alters history and leaves behind a sinister connection between the two different places and times. Deadlands The Weird West explores what's going on in 1884, but the events unfolding in 877 are shrouded in mystery. Until now. Deadlands Dark Ages opens a new early chapter in the Deadlands saga. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are newly born, taking shape from the collective nightmares of a ravaged population. The first known herald emerge, slain men and women who rise from death with the help of a demon who comes along for the ride. Merlin distributes magic-infused six-shooters pilfered from the Weird West to his champions in the Dark Ages. Special tools for special defenders. If you're new to Deadlands, this is a good place to start. While there are links to the villains and concepts that rule the Weird West, they are all at their humble beginnings here. This is a new story, but one with some very familiar names like Arthur, Morgana, Mordred, and Merlin. The Kickstarter project, as I mentioned, is fully funded. You can reserve a copy of the core book, a graphic novel, as well as the accessories box, which, if you're familiar with the big boxes that Pinnacle Entertainment Group does, it's sort of like that, except it's not where, I guess the game book's not going to be in there. Kind of seeing what it looks like, kind of getting an idea of what it looks like there. I guess it's going to be a slipcase where everything's going to slide on in, I guess. So you can get that for a pledge of $100 through October 3rd. If you just want to get a copy of the core book in hardcover, you can do so. It is a $50 pledge. Expected delivery on this will be next July. Looks kind of cool. I will mention that there's some new things included in this accessory box, including terrain. So there are some, it looks like some houses and some trees that are cardstock. I believe they're cardstock. I know they're not physical miniatures. And they are also going to be included in that accessories box. There's a lot of stuff going on with this crowdfunding project. I'm not going to share every single pledge level, but I will give you the two main ones. So I would take a guess. Our good friend, the Madman, who I believe is gaming tonight, probably already backed this. I would assume that they backed this the day it started. Let's move on to our next news piece, because there's a new source book for Achtung Cthulhu 2D20, which has landed in print from Modiphius Entertainment. And here's what I know about Horrors of the Secret War. There are things that were better mankind never knew about. Achtung Cthulhu already contains a huge variety of malign mythos, monstrosities, terrors, and abominations. But this new Grimoire of Terror expands on them even further. It also features a brand new section devoted to invidious cults and infernal sects, detailing the malevolent followers of the old ones. Inside Horrors of the Secret War, you'll discover a new collection of animals which can be used as familiars, companions, or even mounts. Perhaps your agents always wanted a pet monkey, or to terrify their enemies by charging into battle on a war elephant. The Creatures of Weird Science and Sinister Sorcery section details new individuals, units, and entities directly involved in the Secret War. Some, like Porkchop or Headless Harry, are allies from Section M and Majestic, but others, like Black Sun's Zubandrada Yagar, taking a wild guess at that, or Nachtwolf's fearsome Juggernaut, make powerful new adversaries. The Horrors and Monstrosities section presents a selection of creatures to threaten both body and soul. This includes classic mythos creations like Joels or Spiders of Leng, plus a range created exclusively for this bestiary. For some reason, wasn't laid out correctly there. Like the Loathsome Sand Dweller or Fiery Seed of Kovalasam. Isn't that like dressing? Oh no, I'm sorry, that's balsamic. This Tome of Terror concludes with a sanity-challenging selection of elder gods, outer gods, and great old ones. A new pantheon of terrifying deities to strike trepidation into even the stoutest of hearts. Horrors of the Secret War also features invidious cults and infernal sects, a chapter showcasing brand new occult organizations that bring further intrigue and added depth to your games. It features pre-made cults from across the globe, plus rules for creating your own cult from scratch, a ready-made cult headquarters and map, and adventure seeds for anti-cult missions. The 100-page softcover Horrors of the Secret War features over 75 new creatures, monsters, entities, demons, and gods, which range from lowly animals to the terrifying gods of the mythos. Of course, this does require the Achtung Cthulhu 2D20 core books in order to run. The 100-page softcover right now carries an MSRP of $41.46. Kind of an odd MSRP, but of course it is the exchange rates. I did not see if this includes a PDF or not. A lot of times Modiphius does include that, but it did not say so. This is not available at any retailers as of yet, as far as I could tell. But I am guessing, here in the States, the MSRP will probably turn out to be $39.99. Wild guess there. And if and when it becomes available in PDF over at DriveThruRPG, I will figure it's probably going to be $19.99 for this. New bestiary for Achtung Cthulhu 2D20. Looks pretty cool. Like the artwork. And there's over 75 new entries. So we've got that too. Maxpocalypse has joined us. Chris Lundgren, as well as Buddy the Cockatiel and Mrs. Lundgren are with us tonight. Got to be watching the show to catch these little inside jokes, folks. So welcome to them all. On to our next news piece. The third and final of the Dolmenwood core books happens to be available for pre-order from Exalted Funeral and Necrotic Gnome. I've got the lowdown on the monster book. As we go back-to-back bestiaries here. Dolmenwood is a weird fairy tale adventure game conjuring the wonder, horror, whimsy, and strangeness of British folklore. The complete referee's guide to the weird, wondrous, and terrifying denizens of Dolmenwood. Now, keep in mind, referees will also need the Dolmenwood Player's Book and the Dolmenwood Campaign Book. The monster book includes a bestiary of 87 fully detailed monsters dripping with flavor, including encounter seeds and beautiful illustrations. 53 mundane animals, including unique Dolmenwood fauna such as gobbles and gelatinous apes. 9 types of everyday folk: anglers, criers, fortune tellers, lost souls, merchants, peddlers, pilgrims, priests, and villagers. There are 27 NPC stat blocks for common adventuring classes. Adventuring party generator for rolling up NPC adventurers on quests of their own is also included. There are over 300 rumors describing monsters as featured in the fireside tales of local folk, as well as monster creation guidelines to keep players on their toes. Easy to read stat blocks for quick reference, also part of the bargain. Now, it's important to keep in mind this does contain adult themes and elements of horror, so this may not be suitable for younger and more sensitive readers. Okay, so it said it's not suitable for children. The 128-page hardcover with PDF does carry an MSRP of $30. Right now, you can grab just the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $15. And as we pointed out in the past, shipping is expected fall or winter. Still not exactly sure when this is going to ship out. Tessie Trekkie mentions they want their Dolmenwood books and they are waiting impatiently. I'm with you. Just like I just got an update on our golden age. The new book for, well, in the ultraviolet grasslands setting. And still, this book was supposed to be out. It is not even finished. So I've been seeing some people getting really testy about it. Yeah. I figured, well, show up when it shows up. Keith McGrath is joining us tonight. Good to see you. Let's talk about our final news piece, because the latest source book for the Traveler role-playing game has arrived from Mongoose Publishing. I've got the deets on the Borderland. Lying between the Imperium and Aslan Heriot, the Borderland is a region of opportunity and danger. Pirates skulk among the outer planets whilst bands of Ihitai try their luck against underdeveloped worlds. The worlds of the Borderland hold many mysteries. Survivor populations hide among the ruins of lost colonies, and rumors speak of hidden bases and lost treasures waiting to be found. Some worlds are all but unexplored, with hidden dangers for those venturing beyond the dim lights of civilization. There are other forces at play in the Borderland. Shadowy corporations and ramshackle alliances vie for control of the space lanes, whilst the reclusive stakeholders of Tech World pursue their extreme lifestyles and personal agendas with equal vigor. This is a place to tread lightly and carry a big stick, where fame and glory lie just a heartbeat from disaster. This is the Borderland. The Borderland is a useful source book, providing the referee with a semi-isolated sandbox within which to set a campaign. Not too big to get lost in and far enough away from other systems to keep a new campaign on track. The 256-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99. It is available now. If you want to grab just the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Keith McGrath says, all Traveler news is good news. Of course. Of course it is. We had news yesterday too, because there are 2 new Traveler books that have hit at the same time. And on top of that, we also have, 6 issues of the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society, which are also available. Not too shabby. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. We should be seeing some more books from Mongoose Publishing in the not too distant future as well. I think we're going to get to take a peek at Highguard, the equipment catalog, one of the adventure books for Paranoia, as well as the core book for 2300 AD. Fingers crossed on that. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned DriveThruRPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to stop by DriveThruRPG or any of those One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a couple of other ways that you can help support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Ooh, that's wonderbar. Or you can become a monthly member of our Patreon. And on every live show, I like to give a shout out to our Patreon members. I guess I don't like calling them patrons anymore. So, tip of the cap and big thank you to Gustavo Cavallo, Jason Lawman, Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Sean O'Donnell, Talzek, Matt W., Dan Webb, GameCat, Pete Strakulich, RPG Munch, Tessie Trekkie, Tier 2 DM, Agile Monk, and the Madman. So thank you very, very much. And I should also mention that you'll find links down in the show notes as far as PayPal and the Patreon. And we do have a Discord server. It's absolutely free to hang out on the Discord server. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Hooray. So we are going to be taking a peek at the Castles and Crusades Starter Set in a few minutes. A couple of things I wanted to tackle. First off, I'm actually really irritated with YouTube. I think that's why I was kind of off my game to start off the stream tonight. First of all, I'm like, oh, hey, happy. And I'm like, wait, I almost said Tuesday. And I'm like, great, right off the bat. Jeff doesn't even know what day it is. I did end up saying Wednesday, but I was like, oh yeah, we're going to take a look at the Tunnels and Trolls. I was like, what the? Anyway, so if you were hanging out last night, or maybe you watched last night's show, we took a peek at the new starter set for new Dungeons and Dragons. It is Heroes of the Borderlands. I got to say, I was very impressed by what was inside that box for an MSRP of $50. And it did look like Wizards of the Coast was kind of picking up on some of the Daggerheart vibes with the player boards and cards and things like that. So anyway, so stream ends. Now, I have talked about this a few times in the past. I can't do anything with the live stream for about 12 hours. Now, I can go into the show notes. I can put the timestamps in. I can set up the next live stream. I can do those things. What I can't do is I cannot fix the monetization of a video, nor can I put the end screen. So if you ever watch any of the shows or any of the Gaming Gang videos to the end, there's a little end portion and you'll get a couple of options. Well, more than a couple, but you'll get an option to subscribe. You'll get like the latest live stream, and then what does YouTube recommend? So I can't touch that. I can't do anything with that. I also know that if the video is not processed, it's not going to pop up in people's, feeds. So it's usually about 12 hours. It's about a dozen hours. Why? I have no idea. Because if I upload a video within minutes, everything's good. It's gone through. It's checked. Made sure that, there's no copyright infringement, stuff like that. But one of the things that YouTube will do is they will just pack ad after ad after ad after ad in the live streams to the point where sometimes there's 3 minutes between ads. Now, according to YouTube, it does not show an ad at every ad spot. But I've heard from a lot of people that they get way too many fucking ads. Not only when they watch live, I understand that's a problem. I have two choices. I can turn off all the ads and not receive any monetization from the live stream, or I can leave the ads as they are. Right? It's like, Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And they tend to do the same thing with the live streams half the time. The other half the time, they don't put any ads, even though it's supposed to automatically put ads in. So when it does put the ads in, I go in and I delete a bunch of the ad spots so that it's usually about every 10 minutes or so, you might see an ad. And if there's no ads, then I have to go in and put in the ads, keeping in mind it's at least 12 hours later before I can do this on just regular shows. So when YouTube doesn't put any ads in, that means first 12 hours that video's been up, that people are watching it, I make nothing off it. So of course, yesterday's show isn't even processed. I'm like, what? Right now, this is 24 hours later from when it's a little more than 24 hours since last night's stream started. It is still not processed. And it's like, seriously? Really? It's like, you gotta be joking. So of course, yeah, there are people out there who are curious about the starter set. Last night's show is not popping up in anybody's feed. And I will bet you 100% when I finally have an opportunity to actually go in there to the monetization, there will not be any ads. So of course I did send, well, they used to have an email you could send in and say, hey, you know, what's going on with this video? And someone would take a peek. Now it's called feedback. It's like, oh, do you want to give us feedback? Yeah, I'm giving you feedback about this video. And I mentioned it and I said, you know, YouTube wants live streamers. They're always, you know, telling us, oh, how much they really want live streamers. And then they turn around and make it not worth your while to be a live streamer. Tessie Trekkie says they've got a friend who's got over 100,000 subs. They're getting screwed with the new algorithm. I had noticed this past week, views are down. Now, granted, I have shared first looks at some stuff. It's pretty obscure. And then I've had stuff that's not. And I'm kind of surprised. Just like my review of the finale to the Sutra of Pale Leaves for Call of Cthulhu, Carcosa Manifest. Super surprised. Hasn't even cracked 1,000 views yet. And I thought to myself, well, maybe that's because it's not out in retail yet. But because it was on sale from Chaosium Inc. at Gen Con, there's no embargo on it. So I thought, well, you know, I'll get it out. I'll get the review out prior to it hitting stores so people know what's going on. Keith McGrath is curious about the starter set review. I'm going to try to have that up. You're talking about the D&D Heroes of the Borderlands. I'm going to try to have that done before Tuesday because it hit stores on Tuesday. The embargo lifted yesterday, but it does arrive in stores on Tuesday. And I got to be honest, just if you watched last night's show, most of the people in chat were also pretty impressed by what they saw. Now, does that mean the adventure booklets are any good? We don't know. We're going to find out. But still, yeah, kind of wild. Keith also says they love that I cover small titles. That's why they're here. They bought Grit Fantasy based on my review. Yes. Chris Lenred says they shared the 5.5. You mean the new Dungeons & Dragons starter set? Unboxing on 2 of their Facebook groups. Thank you. Hey, something I should also float out real quick. If you're friends with me on Facebook and you invite me to like something, I decline. So if it's like, oh, like this group or like this game or like whatever, I decline it. And the reason is because if I accepted those, I would never see any posts from my family or friends because it's sent to my personal Facebook. So I always turn those down. I feel bad because people probably think, oh, what a jerk. He didn't follow this. Yeah, but the thing is, you know how many requests I get? I get multiple requests each and every day. And it's like, no. Sorry, no. Okay, as I mentioned, and please do not start voting in chat yet. Everybody hear me? Don't start voting. Wait till the end of the show when I ask. Here are the 3 options that we have for tomorrow's show. We have from Osprey Games, Untamed Worlds. You may recall I did a news piece about this. This is about uplifted animals. It's a science fiction role-playing game. Sounds kind of cool. Oh, something else I should mention. Everybody does know when I do news pieces on the show, those are on the website as well. So if you're ever trying to find, oh, hey, you know, Jeff had a news piece about some game that sounded interesting, just go over to thegaminggang.com. You'll find a news piece. All right, so that is one. Then next, we have the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Elf Player's Guide. This is the collector's edition that my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games were kind enough to send me. So this is another option. And then I already mentioned Monster Ball 2 for Tales of the Valiant and Dungeons and Dragons from my friends over at Kobold Press. Those are the options. I will ask you at the end of the show, which would you like to see tomorrow night? We will do a live first look, and then the other 2 will just get standalone videos probably over the weekend when I do a first look. So there is that. All right, as I had mentioned, we're going to be diving on in. We're going to take a look at the Castles and Crusades Starter Set from my pals over at Troll Lord Games in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Applaud the hero if you wish, or hiss the villain loudly. But here's a star that rates your cheers, and we present it proudly. This star of stars is our star. It's hot, it can't be beaten. Get yours at our refreshment bar right now for real good eating. To top it off with popcorn, hot and tasty, you'll soon see now. Then for your favorite drink, just ask, a real treat, you'll agree now. If you've a sweet tooth, you will like our brands of gum and candy. But first be sure you eat your pranks, they're fresh and pure, just dandy. You'll love their flavor, fresh and hot, in just the right condition. Enjoy your fill of Armor Star pranks in this intermission.
That's not sanitary.
It all started when I discovered wheels. You know, these wheel-shaped cheese-flavored snacks that taste so... cheese-flavored. Anyhow, I was fixing a tray of wheels when suddenly I saw a wheel stealer.
I am a wheel stealer.
And he ate up all my wheels. So then I fixed a tray of flutes, these flute-shaped snacks with a butternut flavor. But when I turned my back, a flute snatcher got them.
The flute snatcher strikes again!
So then I bought crowns, crown-shaped snacks with the scrumptious corn-roasted flavor, and I was enjoying their corny crunchiness when I realized the character on the TV screen was in reality a crown grabber. Crowns! So that's it, friends. When you eat wheels, flutes, and crowns, you're gonna meet wheel stealers, flute snatchers, and crown grabbers. But beware, they're very sneaky and have all kinds of disguises. Why, there may be some in your house right now.
Wilkins decaffeinated coffee lets you sleep.
Not me. I don't drink it.
It lets everybody sleep.
Her name is Angel. She's unlike any high school student you've ever met.
Are you having difficulty making friends?
I'm on top of the honors list.
There's more to life than getting straight A's.
Her only friends are on the streets. Her only chance is on her own.
You're young, attractive, healthy. You're swimming around in a toilet bowl.
I was alone.
Where's your mom, Angel?
One day I came home from school and she was gone. Just that note, $100 bill. I just put on some sexy clothes and high heels and went out and made a living.
Everything in life has a price on it, Angel. Somewhere down the line, you're gonna have to pay.
It's my life.
Angel, her two worlds are about to collide.
Remind me never to get murdered.
Angel, it's her choice, her chance, and her life.
I lulled you into a false sense of security, didn't I? Oh, wholesome drive-in cartoons. Yeah, okay. Then suddenly it's sleaze. High school prostitute Angel. I saw that movie. I remember seeing that movie. It was part of a triple bill at some third run movie theater in Chicago. It was like, yeah, the only A-cup prostitute you're probably going to see out there. Yeah, Keith Lewis says, I saw this movie. It was something else. Weirdly enough, there's a series of Angel movies. I think there's 3 or 4. And I think as soon as they hit the second movie, it's a completely different actress playing the main character. Yeah. Beard is with us tonight. I think, oh, yes, I was going to say, I think someone else popped in. It is Mark Hawkswell saying they're late to the party, asking if it was mentioned that Tales of Argosa is on sale for $9.99 currently. Wasn't that the deal of the day, though? I mean, if it's still $9.99, that's awesome. That's fantastic. But usually deals of the day are only for that one day. I don't know. You'll have to check that out. Cthulhu said, I knew about Avenging Angel, not the others. I might be wrong, but for some weird reason, I seem to recall that there's like more than just the two. Kevin R. Smith says, I remember it was always listed on HBO late at night back in the day, though they never watched it. You didn't miss anything. Not at all. It wasn't even sleazy enough, really. For an R rating, it was like, okay. Russell Higgins is with us as well tonight. All right, so this evening we are going to dive on in and take a first look at the Castles and Crusades Starter Set from Trollord Games. This box set is available now. It carries an MSRP of $29.99. If you want to just grab the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the starter set for Castles and Crusades. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Trollord Games were kind enough to provide me this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the 3 booklets which are contained within. I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside. And then lastly, there is an adventure supplement in this starter set. So if you're a player and your castle keeper has picked this up, maybe they're talking about picking this up, maybe it's your game master who's thinking of dipping their toes into Castles and Crusades, by all means, as a player, there are going to be some spoilers. I don't know anything about the adventure, but as we flip on through, I'm sure we're going to see some things that might ruin some of the surprises of the tale. So you have been warned. All right, let's take a look at the back here. Epic adventure awaits. In your hands, you hold the very font of imagination, where all things become real. Play as mighty warriors and weavers of powerful spells. Face off against terrible dragons, giants, and monsters of lore. Win gold and glory, or die trying. Castles and Crusades, the best in fantasy gaming, is now available in an introductory box set. Within this box are 3 booklets specifically designed to help new players learn what a role-playing game is, how to play Castles and Crusades, and how to use it to bring to life exciting adventures for you and your friends and family. Herein, you learn how to create scenarios and people them with monsters, and how to create characters with which to embark on unforgettable stories of high adventure. And it's going to tell us what's in the box. What's in the box? I know, I always go back to that. Yeah, I just throw that out there all the time. What's in the box? Come on, what's in the box? All right, set of dice. Oh, we only have 1 6-sided die. Ooh. That's why when we were looking at the starter set for Heroes of the Borderlands, I was very happy to see that we had 4 6-sided dice. To me, that's a set of dice that is going to get a lot of use. So we got red. That's cool. Hey, yeah, just a set of dice. I know it's only 1 6-sider, but that's all right. I'll survive. Okay, we're going to take everything out of the box here. So we got some character sheets we'll look at last. It says, read this book first. Shazama85 says the cat is in the box, prefers it to expensive cat beds. It's actually, the reference I'm making is a quote from Seven at the end. Brad Pitt. What's in the box? All right, so let's take a look at the credits page here for our character creation book. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life. So let's give credit where credit is due. Kevin R. Smith says it should have 3d6s for Castles and Crusades. To its credit, Wizards of the Coast official dice sets usually have 4d6, 2d20. The 20-sided dice are for advantage and disadvantage, as we saw in last night's first look. So here we've got our introduction. Welcome, brave reader. In your hands, you hold an infinite potential for boundless adventure and hours upon hours of fun. This booklet will teach you everything you need to know about how to play Castles and Crusades and embark on fantasy epics spawned from your imagination. If you know nothing about C&C, first of all, welcome. To set yourself down the right path, you should read this book first. Once you're finished with this booklet, you will know enough to make your own character and play that character in sessions of Castles and Crusades. If you wish, once you've completed this booklet, you can proceed to the next, directing the game. There's our Castle Keeper's book. And then we have I think it's Into the Dark is the adventure. Keith McGrath says, I play Shadowrun, so I've got plenty of D6s. Most gamers have plenty of D6s. They may not necessarily have 4 matching D6s outside of your traditional white with black pips or red with white pips, or maybe even black with white pips. So it's going to tell us about using this booklet. I am kind of surprised we are seeing that this is in grayscale. This is not color. The reason why I mentioned that is because I had noticed one of the adventures that was sent along with the starter set. I shared a news piece about last night, actually. It is Winter's Bite. It is color. The interior is color. I was like, wow, fancy. But this is our pretty traditional Castles and Crusades look. So it is grayscale. It's not color. Paper stock, very nice. Very nice paper stock here. You get an example of play. Of course, we get a discussion of what is a role-playing game. Is this... Well, I guess it's giving us kind of a detailed example of an encounter against, I think it's a giant. It looks like it's a fighter versus a giant. Then we're going to get into our dice. It's going to talk about each of our dice here, the D4 through the D20. And no mention of percentile dice. Oh, no, here it is. There you go. I was going to say, wait a second. Nope, they're not talking about percentile dice. So one of the things that really sets Castles and Crusades apart from other fantasy role-playing games is the fact that you can really craft the sort of player character you want. And what I mean by that is we have our traditional classes, right? Because this is an offshoot of Dungeons and Dragons, not 5e. It is earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a D20 game, essentially, is what I mean by that. But what we have is with our attribute checks, or I guess we could say tests or DCs, things along those lines, if you're familiar with those terms. The number that you need to roll equal to or better than in order to succeed at an average challenge, average thing that you're trying to do, is determined by your attributes. And we do have primary and secondary attributes, which is different. So normally what we'll see in a lot of D20 based games, which have our traditional 6 attributes, is we'll have a range of 3 to 18 because you're rolling 3 6-sided dice. Maybe you're rolling 4 6-sided dice and discarding the lowest number. And for the most part with D20 games, you're looking at that attribute's going to give you a modifier. And that is how things work here as well. But you have primary and secondary attributes. So depending on your class, you are going to have a primary attribute you must have as a primary attribute if you want to have that class. Does it matter what the role is, what the value of that attribute is? No. So what happens is if you're doing something that's going to utilize a primary attribute, it is easier for you to achieve that than if you don't. So the breakdown is a standard challenge for a primary attribute. So let's say you're a fighter and strength is one of your primary attributes. It's going to be 12. If it's a secondary attribute, then it's 18. And then, of course, you have other modifiers, like you'll add level if it's something that's got to do with your class. There are other rules that are involved in it. So it's not as if, oh my gosh, I'm using a secondary attribute, I'll never achieve this. No, that's not the case whatsoever. But it is easier for you to succeed when you're utilizing a primary attribute. So what happens is if you are a human, you get 3 primary attributes and 3 secondary attributes. If you are a non-human character, then you get 2 primary attributes and 4 secondary attributes because you're getting the extra goodies that your species allows. It's really cool how this works, because if you want to have a cleric who is sort of a detective, loves to investigate things, well, then you're going to make sure that outside of your wisdom as a primary attribute, you'll also have intelligence. So kind of interesting how that works. So not only do you have your traditional character classes, and you will have the various different abilities for those classes. And of course, we have the various different races, which will give you the different abilities from that. You can also custom tailor your character's approach to things. I like that. I like that quite a bit. So as we can see, we have got some pretty, I was going to say, pretty compact information packed in here. So as an example, with the various different species, we got the dwarves. Dwarves in the core book, in the player book, take up, I think it's 2 pages. Here we're just going bang, squeezing it all in, less than a page. I don't mind that at all. I think that's pretty wild that we're kind of getting things just like, let's see, with our classes. Yeah, looks like we got a page. Something else I understand is with this starter set, it'll take you up to level 6. And we do have levels higher than 20 in Castles and Crusades. The possibility if you want to include them. But we've got combat. All in all, Castles and Crusades is not super crunchy. It's pretty easy once. Okay, so once you get the 12 and the 18 down, it's not too difficult to understand. The Castle Keeper's Guide is all optional material. So the reality is for Castles and Crusades, if you want to take a step further than just the starter set, you've got the player book. You also have Monsters and Treasure. And I do believe that all 3 books are now on Foundry. I think Monsters and Treasure just made its Foundry appearance, and I think they are hitting Foundry first. Chris Lundgren says they saw an earlier unboxing somewhere else. They're not sure where. The box seemed pretty lightweighted on product, but it's fair priced. I would say that the pricing of it is fair for what you're getting, for what I can see here. I wouldn't say it's light on product because if you think about it, most starter sets that are right in that $30 range are about the same. We might see some player aids and stuff like that I'm not seeing, or at least I don't think we have in here. So we've got spells. We've got some spell lists going up to level 3. And then we have our breakdown of spell descriptions. Very concise, which is normal for Castles and Crusades. So this isn't something that they've decided, oh, well, for the starter set, we're going to cut down the spell descriptions. No, the spell descriptions in Castles and Crusades aren't extremely verbose. Chris Leonard also pointed out, Eric Tenkar said he considers Castles and Crusades OSR adjacent and still OSR and a great game. Okay. The fine folks over at Troll Lord Games do not consider Castles and Crusades OSR. In fact, they have made multiple attempts to get Castles and Crusades out of the OSR section of DriveThruRPG. And I guess they've been just barking at the wall. So what I tend to say is Castles and Crusades is old school flavored. So yes, Chris Leonard says, right, adjacent. Well, what you said, Chris, is he considers it OSR adjacent and still OSR. So you're saying he said it's OSR. Can't have both. It's either yes or no. Most people would say Castles and Crusades is not OSR. We've talked about this before. The old school Renaissance is pretty bizarre. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love old school styled games, but some people, they take it super seriously, and if it's not based on OD&D, Basic Expert, or First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, it is not OSR. Kevin R. Smith says, I think OSR adjacent or new SR are good labels for it. Weirdly enough, there is pushback on new SR. Some people have the misconception that new SR is only things like Mirkberg, art punk kind of stuff, which isn't the case. I agree with Kevin R. Smith. To me, new SR is more along the lines of games that take inspiration from the old school way. So just taking a peek at these spells here. I think that's how we're going to wrap up the book. We got some finishing touches, got a glossary, spell reference table. That's how we will wrap up. Kind of surprised we don't have like a little mini cardboard Castle Keeper screen. Just like I saw a comment on the Heroes of the Borderlands starter set that a viewer was surprised that there was not just a small cardboard DM screen. And you know what? I'm with you on that. I'm with them on that. Tessie Trekkie points out Electric Bastion Land. My God, I can't talk tonight. Tessie Trekkie says Electric Bastion Land and Malzanita are new SR. Yes, I would completely agree. Dirty Dwarf is joining us. I think this might be a first-time visit. Says they played a lot of Castles and Crusades. It is a modern game, just simplified. I agree. I completely agree. One of the cool selling points, at least in my opinion, for Castles and Crusades is how easy it is to port over old Dungeons and Dragons modules from first edition AD&D through third edition Dungeons and Dragons, and anything that would be built for that, right? Any sort of third-party products and so forth. I think that is, and it's super easy to do on the fly. First of all, let's take a peek at this credits page because it might be a little bit different. I got to say, I am really impressed by the artwork. I know my friends over at Troll Lord Games went out and they purchased the artwork to be able to utilize. I think the artist's name is Justin Gerard, but really like the artwork because it's got, you know what kind of feel it's got? If you've seen my review of Land of Eam, which I absolutely loved, talk about an old school inspired role-playing game that is certainly not old school, but sort of reminds me of that artwork a little bit. And I checked, it is not, I don't think it's the same artist. Wallona's Cave is with us in chat. Welcome. I think they've been here for a little bit. I just forgot to say hello. All right, so this is directing the game. So this is going to walk the potential castle keeper through the process. The castle keeper's responsibility. As we said before, the CK is sort of like an author or a narrator. This part of the job for the castle keeper is twofold. First, they devise the setting as well as any specific plot they'd like to explore and populate whatever world they imagine with characters, creatures, dungeons, and treasures, like an author. Secondly, they act as the go-between for the players in that world. They act out the parts of the different characters the PCs meet and describe what happens in response to what the PCs do, like a narrator. Font's a little small. It's not terrible. It's just a little bit small. Rules and how to apply them, talking about the siege engine. So remember I was talking about we've got those primary and secondary attributes. You got the 12, you got the 18. What a lot of people have done to kind of get around that, kind of make it a little easier for most people to grasp, is if it's you're always looking at an 18 as the standard, right? There's modifiers and could be higher, could be lower, whatever. But standard is 13 or standard is 18. So what some people have done is if it's a primary attribute on top of all your other modifiers that you've got, add 6. So rather than sitting there going, well, okay, so when do I do as the castle keeper? When do I do 12? When do I do 18? Just always make it 18. And then the player has to keep in mind, okay, so is it a primary attribute? Okay, great. On top of whatever other modifiers they've got, add 6. So got some combat info, terminology, procedure, actions, movement, building your world, where to start, how much is too much? Yeah, that's a good point to make. People start getting into game mastering and they're like, oh my God, I'm building the whole world out. Oh, I'm building out all these cities. And no, man, just let the players start off in one spot. That's all you need to do. Dirty Dwarf says some people go 10, 15. Well, okay. You know what? That might be an option from the Castle Keeper's Guide. I don't recall. 15 Insight Game says, howdy folks, I'm pretty new to the tabletop role-playing game community. Is OSR more related to mechanics or feel or a combination of both? Oh man, you just opened up a can of worms. Everyone has their own definition of OSR. And when I say they have their own definition, they even have their own definition of what those letters stand for. Some people, it's old school revival. Or some people I've heard now say it's old school rules. I've always used old school Renaissance. In my opinion, the old school Renaissance is inspired by the original role-playing games. It can still have modern mechanics. That's not an issue. But it has to have some shared DNA with Dungeons and Dragons, old editions of Dungeons and Dragons. But it does not have to be just a rehash of AD&D or anything like that. So Chris Lundgren asks, is Dungeon Crawl Classics OSR? The vast majority of people will tell you that Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR. I would take a guess Joe Goodman probably doesn't believe it is OSR either. But is it an old school flavored role-playing game? Hell yeah. To me, the old school is more of a feel than mechanics. But then other people, it's all about mechanics. I did a show on this topic previously in one of our live streams, probably about a year ago or so, and talked about how people have different ideas what OSR is. And the reality is nobody's wrong. As Chris Leonard says, OSF, old school flavor. Matthew Blackwell says a really good OSR game would be like Basic Fantasy. I love the modularity of Basic Fantasy. And funny enough, there are people who would say Basic Fantasy is not OSR because Basic Fantasy is actually built off of 5e. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I like Basic Fantasy too. When I talk to people who have never played a role-playing game and they don't have a hell of a lot of money to invest into the hobby, like getting everybody sets of dice is something that worries them, I point them at Basic Fantasy. Like, it's all free. If you even want to pick up the physical books, they are at cost. So anyway, okay, so this is a bit of our bestiary here, it looks like. We've got our monster reference table. So as an example, the owl bear. These large, freakish creatures have the head of a massive owl with a toothy beak perched atop a powerful bear's frame. An owlbear coat ranges in color from brown-black to yellowish brown. Its beak is a dull ivory color. A full-grown male can stand as tall as 8 feet and weigh up to 1,500 pounds. Owlbears attack prey on sight, always fighting to the death. They will consider any creature larger than a mouse suitable prey. They slash with claws and beak, trying to grab their prey and rip it apart. If they strike with both claws, they can hold a victim immobile, inflicting an extra 1d12 points of damage with their beak. Chris Leitner asks, if I had to buy this box myself, would I have done so? Or would I just get the hardcover books in a single adventure? You can't really ask me that question, though. Because the thing is, I already own all of the major books for Castles and Crusades. I have the reforged editions of them. So the reality is, would I go and buy the starter set? No, because I have everything outside of the adventure book in the core. Well, I shouldn't say core because the Castle Keeper's Guide isn't truly a core book. But from what I'm looking at here, this is looking really solid as far as a starter set. One thing I will say, it does not look like it is holding anybody's hand. which in some respects for some people will be very good. And for other people, they may not care for that. Now, well, this does look to be written in, for the most part, in a lot of sections, a conversational manner. It's not aimed at like the lowest common denominator, I guess I'd say, which sounds bad. I don't mean it to sound that bad, but this does look like this is written for someone who reads. I guess I'll say it that way. It looks like this is written for somebody who normally reads. You can see just with the font size, there is a lot of information that's being packed into these pages. Matthew Blackwell says they have the 3 Reforged books on order. They bought the Player's Book and Monsters and Treasure in the past. All the books on Air Day, which is our default setting for Castles and Crusades, and the entire C series of modules. Castles and Crusades has become their go-to for fantasy role-playing game. Dirty Dwarf says, nice company, good people. Yeah, I would consider a lot of the folks at Troll Lord Games pals in the industry of mine. So we had a little bump in the road. We ironed it out. It wasn't, it was more just lack of communication than anything else. So that's it's been ironed out. So we're all good. Okay, so this is our adventure book. So remember, as I mentioned, probably going to see some spoilers here. So once again, we will take a peek at our credits page. Chris Leonard wonders if basic fantasy or Castles and Crusades is easier to learn and to get up and playing if you've never played an RPG. I would say that's probably pretty close to being equal. 15 Insight Game says that's something I've been wrestling with. How much hand holding is enough versus too much? Matthew Blackwell says, for someone who's never played, I would go with a stripped down basic fantasy role-playing game. As opposed to the starter set that we're taking a peek at right now, I don't know. I would say that'd be equal. If we are talking about picking up like the Player's Book and Monsters and Treasure for Castles and Crusades, yes. If somebody's never run a fantasy role-playing game before, I would point them at basic role-playing, basic fantasy, because of the zero cost of entry for PDFs. And see what they think, because there are a lot of people out there, they watch actual plays and they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And they're like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go shell out hundreds of dollars on books. And then the books arrive and then they sit down, they start reading them and they're completely lost. They're like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? That happens all the time. So to avoid that, I always tell people, hey, look at stuff that's free, stuff that's very low cost as an introduction to the hobby. Check those things out. If you can wrap your head around it, if your players enjoy it. Something else you got to keep in mind, a lot of times it's parents want to do something that's going to be with their family and they don't keep in mind that their kids' noses are in their phones and stuff like that constantly, that's something that they are going to have to deal with. The following scenario is designed for 3 to 8 first-level characters and is intended to help first-time castle keepers get a game started. It presents a basic challenge with a clear goal, a dungeon, a home base in the town of Grey Gulch, some wilderness exploration, and a brief overview of the surrounding lands. If you wish, this adventure may serve as the starting point for a long-running campaign. To support this, lots of ideas and setups for future adventure have been included, though none are overly detailed. The hope is that you will take these ideas and expand them and make them your own. All right, let's find out what is going on with this adventure here. The adventure begins in the village of Grey Gulch. Do not put them in the tavern. Do not put them in the tavern. It is a small farming town situated on the edge of a vast, dark forest. People of the town have always been wary about the forest, saying it was haunted. A few months ago, a vicious giant came down from the mountains and settled down in the forest and organized a loose gang of goblins who formed their own thieves' guild called the Grim-Handed Society. Every week for the past few months, the giant, called Vel Tarnuk, has sent teams of goblins into Grey Gulch to harass the residents and collect goods and treasure from them as payment for no service in particular. Those who resist payment are beaten senseless and dragged back to Val Tarnuk's lair, never to be seen again. Those who resist payment are beaten senseless and dragged back. Oh, okay. All right. Already read that. In response to this horrible cruelty, locals from around the area have mustered up the courage to do something about it. Several would-be heroes have wandered into the forest to find Val Tarnuk's lair, yet none have returned. As a last-ditch effort, the village has put out word to the surrounding towns for help. Novice adventurers from around the countryside have come together as a team to sort out Val Tarnuk once and for all. All right. So there you go. Then we got some read aloud text. One starter set adventure that I really like how it gets the players put together as a group is the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set. And it starts off, all of the player characters are in, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Ubersreich, the city of Ubersreich. And there's a festival going on, and they're all in the market, and all of a sudden, this brawl breaks out, and all hell breaks loose. And of course, they get involved. They're all, jostled into it. And of course, then they're all arrested. And they, some things get pinned on them that they didn't do. And it's pretty cool. It's a hell of a lot better than, well, you're in a tavern. Ugh. Drives me nuts. And then, of course, you're in the tavern and they want you to go take care of the either giant rats or giant spiders, which are down in the basement of the tavern. So let's see. 15 Insight Games says, have them wake up in the stable instead. Another good starting point was the Lost City, which was also, it was, first level characters for Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't AD&D, it was D&D. And the player characters were, yes, we've seen the typical, oh, you're caravan guards. Yeah, okay. It's like, that one's overused a lot too. But there's a sandstorm and they're separated from the rest of the caravan. That's how the party comes together. I like that too. Where they don't know each other. They just, they're minding their own business, just trying to make a buck. And then all of a sudden, whoops. Chris Lundgren says, I know some people love to buy just starter sets to run role-playing games. Chris likes to collect them, but some will never get played, just not enough time in a lifetime. They can only imagine how many RPGs I have or I've played. I've played a lot. I own a lot more. Matthew Blackwell says, now several $100s later, yeah, I'm more hooked than I was as a kid. Chris Lundgren's talking about 3rd edition Boot Hill because their players want to play the Wild West. Max Apocalypse says, Boot Hill has 3 editions. Yeah, they had 3. Hey, when we wrap up taking a look at this, there's something I stumbled across today that I wanted to mention. I might even reach out to this company. Max Apocalypse says they really like the Castles and Crusades house style for art. So it looks like we're going to have some goblins, some wolves, giant spiders. Got to have giant spiders in a role-playing adventure for low levels. Other sites in this forest. There's the cave. That's kind of wild. I like that artwork. That is very cool. I'll be the first to admit, with my fantasy role-playing games, I don't care what role-playing game it is, I tend to steal monsters from other role-playing games to utilize. I've said it time and time again. I like the concept of the Paizo Inc. Pathfinder goblins. So all the fantasy role-playing games that I will run, if there are goblins in it, they will take on the attributes of those goblins. Kind of crazy, fearless, sort of, you never know what to expect. Completely afraid of dogs and horses. Yes, those are the goblins that I like to utilize. So here it looks like we've got the Giant's Lair. I wonder what level this will take you up to. It said it was for first level characters to start off. And as I mentioned, unlike most starter sets, if talking about role-playing games that have a level for the player characters, normally they're first through third at most. This actually will take you up to 6th level. There's content in the character creation book up to the 6th level. I thought that was pretty nice. I had heard through the grapevine, future print runs of this might change that. They might only go up to 3rd. So I'm just a saying. Max Apocalypse says, possum pelt. Yeah, I actually call that goblin possum, right? That was cool. I like that artwork. I'm going to have to find that artwork in color. Chris Leonard says they're kind of drifting away from fantasy after running Osric for 4 years. See, I've sort of gotten away from horror, having run Call of Cthulhu and other role-playing games here and there, but mainly 96% of the role-playing games that I've run in my 40 plus years of running role-playing games has been Call of Cthulhu. And I love Call of Cthulhu. I certainly do. I just want to kind of have an opportunity to run some fantasy stuff and provide that old school vibe where if you go back in the hobby, I know not everybody's going to be as old as I am, but I was around when D&D hit. Now, of course, when original Dungeons and Dragons came out, I was just a little kid. But by the time AD&D was out, I was getting ready to go to high school. So I think AD&D came out, I was in 6th or 7th grade. So I wasn't too far off from high school. But one of the things that was just made role-playing games, not only Dungeons and Dragons, but made role-playing games just so fascinating was anything could happen. And it was not something, because got to remember, we didn't have the kind of video games we do nowadays. We didn't have all the cool geek culture, movies and TV shows and things like, no, not at all. If you wanted fantasy, if you wanted science fiction, you cracked open a book and read it. And what really was fascinating about role-playing games was that suddenly we had something where we were creating our own stories like what we had read. And there were no rules. And every time you played a game, and like as a game master myself, every time I ran something, it was like the players could experience something that was like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. And that would happen. Now, sadly, you know, everybody's a lot more jaded now. They've come a long way. There is far, far too much entertainment out there of all different stripes. That's why people have that, you know, fear of missing out on streaming shows. And it's like, really? I don't. It's like, you know, and I watch, you know, Alien Earth. I watch For All Mankind. There's a lot of shows I watch. Not all, you know, geek culture stuff. But I never sit there and go, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to see the new episode of Dexter Resurrection. No, not at all. So, all right. So here we got our character sheets. Dual-sided. What do we got? 4 of these, maybe? Yes. So we have 4. And I've got to say, this is a pretty streamlined looking Castles and Crusades character sheet. I like that. Very nice. So we got our spells, spell slots, inventory, got our weapons to hit, the damage. Gives us a breakdown of where we would put our modifiers here. Sweet. Very nice. Okay. So this starter set has the 4 double-sided character sheets. We've got Into the Dark, the adventure where the player characters are taking on the giant that's causing trouble for, was it Grey Gulch? Then we have Directing the Game, which is a little bit of a Castle Keeper's Guide for us. And then we have Character Creation, as well as a set of polyhedral dice. That is what we find inside the Castles and Crusades, the fantasy role-playing game starter set from my friends over at Troll Lord Games. This box set is available now. It does carry an MSRP of $29.99. If you want to grab just the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. I will be sharing a review of the Castles and Crusades starter set in the not too distant future. And I will point out that I am going to be running some fantasy role playing with the gang. Remember I had mentioned, this is a couple weeks ago, I think, that we had gotten together and I was going to start playtesting my homebrew that we had talked about in the video series, Let's Create a Fantasy Role-Playing Game. I don't have time. I don't have the time to invest into it. I really don't. I've got some cool ideas. I like the ideas in that, but if I don't have time to do a new edition of Knights and Magic, the miniature rules that I own, I don't have time to put together a fresh new game. So I am going to be using Castles and Crusades for the fantasy role-playing game adventuring that I'm going to run for the gang. I don't know if necessarily I'll run the adventure that's in this starter set. I kind of want to port over some old D&D stuff because, you know, my nephew, his girlfriend, my brother, and Elliot probably too, would be all new for. And I just want to give them, you know, kind of that feel of, hey, these are the sort of adventures that we had come out back when I was a kid. So there you go. Reading Aid joined us, as had Agile Monk. Said all the covers have great artwork. Yes, I had mentioned that before. I think the artist's name is Justin Gerard. Really cool. I had actually mentioned to Chuck over at Troll Lord Games, Chuck Cumbo, that I really dug the artwork that they chose for the starter set because it had a little bit of sense of whimsy to it, which you don't normally see with Castles and Crusades. Castles and Crusades and its setting of Erde are pretty traditional fantasy. There isn't a lot of like fairy tale vibe to the proceedings. Like when we were just talking about the Dolmen Wood monster book, Dolmen Wood strikes me as something that's going to have a real heavy, like British fairy tale or British mythology vibe to it. Castles and Crusades plays it pretty straight. And I had mentioned to Chuck, I said, you know, they should consider, even if they were just standalone adventures, that they weren't part of a series or anything, maybe to toss out like a, you know, a one shot here or there that does have more of a fantastical, not so serious, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek vibe to the adventures, like we see with the goblin who was wearing the pelt. That looked pretty wild, right? I was like, oh, you know, but in like an adventure like I'm talking about, they may not be a villain. They might just be an NPC. You know, it might be an ally eventually of the player characters, things like that. So kind of cool. Kind of cool. Agile Monk asks how old my nephew is now. He just turned 24 last month. So Chris Langren says they have the rule book for Holmes D&D, never had the box. I did have that. Every once in a while I kick around trying to get a decent copy of the white box as well as the Holmes, blue Holmes, I guess they call it blue box or whatever. I actually thought I paid quite a bit for my AD&D, my first edition AD&D books. And now I look at them like, wow, yeah, I got a pretty good deal, especially for the condition that they're in. All right. So Agile Monk had said, you've been a good uncle keeping him in the hobby. Yeah, we play different games and stuff. I was just over there, 3 weeks ago, and Elliot couldn't make it. So I had them roll up characters, as I mentioned, for my now aborted play test. And then we played some board games. So that's usually what we ever do. Have I ever owned the blue box? Yes, I owned it. Have I ever reviewed it? No, because I don't own a copy now. I only have, let's see, for AD&D, I have Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, Unearthed Arcana, why am I blanking on the one for the British monsters? Fiend Folio, which I was never a huge fan of. I think it was mainly because I didn't care for the art style, which is funny because if you look at the Monster Manual, there's some really atrocious art in that, whereas the art is actually quite a bit better in the Fiend Folio. And Deities and Demigods. Those are the AD&D books that I've got, and they are all in pretty damn good shape. Other editions of Dungeons & Dragons, I do not have. So I don't have OD&D, I don't have Basic, I don't have Expert, I don't have, Immortal or anything like that. I don't have 2nd edition stuff, 3rd edition stuff, 4th edition stuff. I have all but one 5e book. Of course, we're talking Wizards of the Coast, not third-party stuff. But like Chris Lindgren's mentioning, the Monster Manual 2, I don't have that. I think the only book I've got with Jeff Easley art is the Unearthed Arcana book. Because I think that was the first book that it had his art, and then they redid all the core books with the Jeff Easley art. And I liked the Jeff Easley art. It's just I was already gone from playing D&D or running D&D by the time that took place. So, all right. As I mentioned, if you tuned in late, you missed me talking about what we're going to take a look at on tomorrow's live stream. You're going to have about 2 minutes to vote. So we have got Untamed Worlds from Osprey Games. This is a science fiction role-playing game that just came out, and it's about uplifted animals and like fighting for humanity, because of course now they're expendable, right? I also have the collector's edition of the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay High Elf Player's Guide. And I've got the Tales of the Valiant Monster Vault 2 from my pals over at Kobold Press. Real quick, vote what you would like to see a live first look of on tomorrow's show. And then the other two, I will shoot, or I'll try my best to shoot first look videos over the weekend. All right, so Chris Lundgren's voting for the High Elf Player's Guide. All right, everybody. Okay, 15 Inside Games also votes for Whiffrip. Kind of surprised. That is not the book that I thought people were going to vote for. I'll give everybody about another minute or so to get their vote in. I guess a lot of people are just like, I don't care. I don't care. Whatever, Jeff. You can do whatever you want. Untamed Worlds. Kevin R. Smith says Elf Player's Guide. There we go. Matthew Blackwell, Tales of the Valiant. See, that's the one I thought people were going to vote for. All right, another 30 seconds right now. We are looking at 3, 2, 1 as far as our votes go. Have I done the starter box for Tales of the Valiant? No. It is from Steamforged Games, not Kobold Press. I had been sharing coverage of Steamforged Game stuff, and I'm not sure exactly what they were looking for. So, I mean, they were sending me the miniatures. I would share a look at the miniatures. Like they were sending the Epic Encounters, which is for Dungeons and Dragons. And they have miniatures, and then they've got like a little encounter booklet, which, you know, it's not even an adventure. It's just a couple of encounters, really. So I was sharing coverage of the miniatures, giving everybody a close look at the different miniatures and that. I guess that wasn't good enough for them. And, you know, they sent one of their board games. I'm trying to remember which one it was. And sadly, Steamforged is not very well regarded for their board games. And I can see why. So I had actually sent them an email saying, hey, you know, just so you know, this is going to get a negative review if I shoot a review because it's just a mess. And yeah, I didn't really get anything back from that. And then I requested a copy of the starter set, and I had mentioned, hey, you know, I'm really tight with Kobold Press. People are going to expect to see coverage of the starter set. And they wrote me back and said, oh, sorry, we don't have any. We can send you out. And I was like, yeah, okay. Sure you don't. So I was like, all right, whatever. And at that point, I was like, yeah, forget it. But yeah, it was funny because I had talked to some of the folks over at Kobold Press, and they're like, really? Like, seriously? But you can't buy it from the Kobold Press store. It's not available at least it wasn't a while back, because, of course, my friends over at Kobold Press were like, if we could, we'd just give you a copy. But they didn't have it at Gen Con or anything like that. So I think that is strictly through Steamforged Games. But anyway, so Michael Burrell says, yeah, don't have any. It's more than half off on their website right now, or at least it was when they bought it. The other thing was, it didn't look all that fantastic. I mean, you know, I like their miniatures. Their miniatures are pretty cool. But I don't know. Michael Burrell says it must be flying off the shelves if it's such deeply discounted. Angela Monk says, hey, folks can get the print and PDF of the Castles and Crusades starter for $39.99. Okay, so let's real quick go back. Warhammer. So 3, 1 for Tales of the Valiant, 1 for Untamed Worlds, 4 for Elf Player's Guide, 2 for Untamed Worlds, 5 for Warhammer, 6 for Warhammer. It looks like we're doing Warhammer. That's fine. I have no problem with that. I had mentioned next week I was going to do all Imperium Maledictum. I think I'll only do one of the books. I think we'll do one of the books for 3 weeks in a row, because I've got a lot of stuff from other publishers too, and I don't want to be like, oh, you guys got to wait. Like, you know, like I wouldn't mind taking a live look at this. It is actually a bit thicker than most of the Osprey games, role-playing games. The only thing I always wonder about the Osprey role-playing games is what kind of support is it going to get? Because a lot of times it's a one and done. And Osprey does release some really good role-playing games, really interesting stuff, very unique settings, pretty unique mechanics too. They're not just all the same mechanics. And then it's sort of like, okay, well, there you go. Here's the game. Bye. And I know that a lot of people out there are like, oh no, I like to create my own adventures. I say it all the time. The vast majority of people out there do not have time to craft their own adventures. They love to buy published adventures, tweak the hell out of them, but still have a published adventure to use at least as a skeleton. But yes, Agile Monk says, sadly, Osprey is often one and done. Chris Lindgren asked, didn't Osprey do historical? That is what Osprey Publishing is known for decades of very detailed historical books, mainly about different armies of different periods, and they would include colored plates in the books of uniforms and that. So miniatures painters like myself back in the day would have all these Osprey books. I used them all the time for my American Civil War miniatures I would paint. So yes, they're very, very well known for their historical books. They launched their gaming division about, off the top of my head, about 8 years ago. They've done really well. Actually have done pretty well with, especially with their role-playing games and their Undaunted line of games. Very, very nice. I did, now I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the game. It's a card game, but it's like a civilization building game with historical civilizations. They had 2 editions. One was more fictional, like King Arthur, and the other was historical. And like that a lot. That was really nicely done. And I think they're releasing a 3rd one, or they did already release a 3rd one. So, yes, problem that happened with Osprey Games was their marketing person, who I was pretty tight with, left. And that was it. We talk about this all the time. And then the person who's their marketing person now, I touched base with, and we're going to see if we can get things back on track. But the person that used to be there is now with Rebellion Unplugged. So we have some Rebellion Unplugged board games on our way. A lot of board game publishers reaching out to me lately. So we're going to probably see a few more board games here and there, especially on the live show. All right. Pretty long show tonight. I guess it'll probably be 2 days before I can do anything with this stream. Yeah, something I was talking about earlier in the show after the news. But we shall see. All right. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you're watching live and took part in chat, thank you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm sharing the news or flipping through a book or unboxing a board game, what have it. But maybe you don't watch live. I know a lot of folks don't have an opportunity to. Thank you very much for watching, even if you're watching on Memorex, because I get it. There's a lot of streamers out there. There are a lot of content creators that you could choose to watch, and you tune in and watch my mug. So it is much appreciated. Thank you kindly. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. And of course, if you like the video, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. I'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Call of Cthulhu, the Sutra of Pale Leaves, Carcosa Manifest from Chaosium Inc. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.